Good morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the December 4th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcome here and call Regina home. Some members of the committee and city administration may be attending the meeting today through video conferencing. I would like to remind those members of the following. Please ensure your video camera and microphone are turned off. If a member of committee wishes to speak, use the raise hand function to be placed in the speaking queue. When speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video camera, and all votes will be conducted with a recorded vote. Reports recommended for consideration by City Council will be considered at its meeting scheduled for December 11th, and the deadline to register as a delegation for the City Council meeting is 12 noon on Monday, December 9th. Can I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the call of the chair with the addition of the registered list of delegations adjusted as follows? Withdraw delegation Elder Harry Francis and replace Mary Vetter with Rebecca Magnus as the delegation representing Regina Lakeview Community Association, Inc. So you can just raise your hand if you'd like. Thank you. Councillor Burton. I will call the question. Any opposed? Carried. Can I have Councillor Mancinelli, since you were there, a motion to adopt the minutes of the public meeting held on October 2nd, 2024? Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Okay. Any opposed? Carried. Okay, I'm going to pass it to the clerk for a moment, who will just give a reminder of the procedures for executive committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just to remind members, particularly those of you who this will be your first executive committee meeting, there are just a couple of things for you to remember today. When you wish to either address one of the delegations or ask administration questions, just please press the button on your little tablet in front of you, your microphone tablet. It will blink, and when called upon, the Deputy Mayor will ask you then to speak. There's nothing you need to do other than the initial push on the button. In front of you as well, you have just a gentle reminder that parliamentary procedure, you don't directly ask either delegations or administration questions. You address those questions through the chair. So it's just a gentle reminder to do that periodically when you're speaking. The other thing is you have 5 minutes to address administration with questions on any report. Those 5 minutes, you can take them in durations of 1 minute each, or you can use all 5 minutes at the same time. You are able to come back into the discussion if you have time permitting. I monitor the time. I have a clock here, and I will respectfully remind the Deputy Mayor when you're approaching your time so that she can encourage you to wrap up your comments as your time has expired. So with that, remember, you have 5 minutes to speak on any motion before council. You have 3 minutes to speak on any amendment to any motion that is on the floor, and there are no limits on your time that you may speak to delegations, except as the Deputy Mayor will try to move you along to keep the agenda going.
Thank you, Clerk. We are, excuse me, we are going to start with report EX 24-98. Community Wellbeing Federal Funding Opportunity, because we have delegations for that one. So I'm going to start by calling on delegation Melissa Coomber-Benstein. I don't think I said your name right. I'll turn on your mic, and if you can introduce yourself for the record. 1 sec, please. Introduce yourself for the record, the organization you're representing, and where you live. You have 5 minutes to address Executive Committee, after which you'll have the opportunity to respond to any questions that members may have for you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be the first delegate of the new council executive. I didn't even realize this was happening today. So, yay. I'm going to buy myself a nice coffee afterwards in celebration. My name is Melissa Cooper-Benson, and I have the privilege of being the CEO of YWCA Regina. Through the chair, I'd like to thank you again for allowing me to present today, and like to thank City Administration for putting this report forward and for the work they've done on this. YWCA Regina has been running shelters for women and children in the City of Regina for 41 years. Our 2 homeless shelters are the only homeless shelters for women and children in southern Saskatchewan, and in addition, we run 1 of 3 domestic violence shelters. My Aunt's Place, or MAP, as we call it, has been in operation since 2008 and has operated at full capacity since opening its doors. It has offered 32 beds for women and children experiencing houselessness, and in more recent years during COVID increased its capacity to 40 beds. In 2022, YWCA made the decision to move MAP from our Lawrence Street location and separate single women from families. And this was in response to the number of drug poisonings and acuity level, or the level of need of the women we were serving. We moved single women to our McIntyre location and our families to our 2nd Avenue location, Amawachsin-Pakahokowin Housing Project. In 2023, YWCA responded to an RFP from Sask Housing to open 20 additional enhanced emergency shelter beds. We responded knowing that this would allow us to fully separate our shelter program based on level of need, which was something that we had just recently started to experience. At this time, our contract to operate My Aunt's Place transferred from income assistance to Sask Housing, and we were able to secure 1 contract for all of our shelter beds, meaning 52 enhanced emergency shelter spaces for women and children. Women and children staying in these spaces receive full wraparound services, and we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We opened Jones Place, that's our high acuity shelter spaces, in early 2024, with 30 shelter spaces for single women experiencing homelessness with high acuity in the All Nations Hope Network building on 5th Avenue. We reduced our lower acuity and family spaces, or what we used to consider our MAP spaces, to accommodate these needs we were seeing in the community. And so MAP continued to operate in 2 locations with 22 beds. So our 52 beds were located in 3 different spaces. With the opening of Kigushki-Danoa Center, our new building, all of our MAP shelter beds were moved to Penelope's Place Tower, which is what we call our tower of housing in that building, in October of 2024. And recently, with the closing of All Nations Hope Network building on 5th Avenue for their renovations, Jones Place, our high acuity spaces, 30 beds, moved temporarily into our Lawrence Street location in early November. We've been moving a lot, is what all of that means. This location, however, is not suited for long term because it doesn't have enough space for those beds. In fact, we're struggling to keep 30 of those beds open in that small amount of space with the supports and needs of the women we were serving, and this was always going to be a temporary space for us. We've been working with Sask Housing and the City Administration since early 2023 when we were awarded the RFP to find a permanent location for Jones Place. And so this funding is part of that renovation when we find a new space for Jones Place, and will really act as a catalyst to help move this process forward and support the renovations that we'll need. So I thank you again for your consideration through the chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. If any members have questions, you can indicate that by pressing the speak button on, and I will call on you. Okay, I do see a question. Is that you, Councillor Fro? Okay, 1 sec, please. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, through the chair, Melissa, thank you for coming, and through you to all your volunteers and donors, congratulations on all the incredible community building you're doing. I guess just a quick question. If I understand correctly, these funds in part allow you to move from a temporary to a permanent measure. So I guess a 2-part question. One, when we introduce something to the community, we never want to take it back, right? So we want to make sure it's sustainable long term. So, with that in mind, have you been able to, or are you in ongoing talks with the province to continue the support that they sort of availed in 2024, so that your operations and the support of the city sort of is the impetus for a more sustainable service offering in the community? So I'm just wanting to make sure that these funds, which is a good news story, are part of a longer-term sustainable solution for your team.
Yeah, thank you for that question through the chair. We have a contract with Sask Housing to operate these shelter beds. And so this funding isn't specific for operations. This funding will help us to do the renovations that we need for the capital space. So it is, our contract with Sask Housing is on a year-to-year basis, as is all of those contracts, but we don't have any concerns about not being able to operate these shelter spaces once we find a permanent location.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fro. Does anyone else have questions? I don't see any other flashes.
Thank you.
So I'll thank you for your presentation, and you may return to the gallery. I'd like to call upon Judith Versuk. Please introduce yourself for the record, the organization you are representing, and where you live. You have 5 minutes to address Executive Committee, and after which you'll have the opportunity to respond to any questions that members may have for you. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Councillor Zakiniak and Executive Committee. I guess I'm the second delegation that you're going to see. So first of all, congratulations on your election or re-election. I'm excited to be able to work with you over the course of your term to make our community a better place. My name is Judith Versuk. I'm the Executive Director of the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District. In the coming weeks, I'll probably be sending you more information about our organization because we are very wide-ranging. But today I'm going to focus on the community well-being federal funding opportunity. And I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of my board and the Regina Street team to support the recommendations in the report before you. That report recommends that City Council approve administration's application to the Government of Canada's Unsheltered Homelessness and Encampment Initiative, and in particular, the recommended initiative of the Street Outreach Enhancement. Regina Downtown is the program administrator for the Regina Street team, and we are certainly supportive of this initiative. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the city on the programs that impact our most vulnerable citizens. With City Council's support, Artie Bid and the Regina Street team are prepared to take on a larger role in our shared goal of creating a healthier and more inclusive community. Over the past 4 years, the Regina Street team, which was formerly the Community Support Program, has partnered with the City of Regina and most recently Community and Social Impact Regina to provide outreach services in our downtown core. Our team members meet with community members where they are at, whether it be while the team is on circuits or responding to a service call or anything in between. This has enabled our Regina Street team to foster positive relationships and trust within the community. In 2024, our team had over 16,000 interactions with community members. They performed over 275 de-escalations. Over 95% of their calls were handled without requiring escalation to emergency services. And they referred over 350 community members to support service organizations, including emergency shelters, detox, health services, and housing. Early in the new year, I will be able to share with you our 2024 annual report for the Regina Street team, which will share more of our success stories and better depict the impact this program has had within Regina. Federal funding is essential to continue addressing the ever-changing need in Regina, which has only grown over the past 4 years. This funding will allow the Regina Street team to expand the scope of work that they do to address our community's priorities in a manner that maintains the high standard of service that is expected of our team. On behalf of the Regina Street Team and our many community partners, I urge you to support this recommendation. Your support will demonstrate your commitment to a healthier and more inclusive Regina. In conjunction with the city, RDBID is prepared to move quickly to support administration's application for funding and the recommended initiative of enhancement of our street outreach program offered by the Regina Street Team. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do any members have questions? Councillor Flores, please go ahead.
Through the chair, Judith, thank you so much for that information. Through the chair, could you please expand a little bit more on how would these services impact the community, and what kind of impact do you foresee overall in the downtown sector with this funding?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, I only had 5 minutes to give you a presentation, so thank you for the question. I'm able to elaborate a little bit more. Our street team originally started as business outreach, kind of that triage between the business and police, because a lot of what our businesses were seeing through the pandemic were mental health issues that weren't necessarily emergent or a police call. And the businesses were very concerned about draining resources by calling police. So with the city's support, we created the community support program, which originally started out with 3 members. With the growing need and the proven outcomes over the past 3 years, we've been able to grow that team to 14 folks now. So these folks now have a vehicle. So we do still maintain team circuits, so that folks that are on foot that usually travel throughout downtown and some of the adjacent neighborhoods like Heritage or Warehouse, Cathedral. They do health checks, wellness checks on folks that they encounter on the street. Sometimes they're actually looking for folks that some of our other community partners are trying to find because someone missed an appointment with so-and-so and they're worried about them. They have built that trust and recognition with our community downtown, so they're able to help find people and just check on them, make sure that they get to where they're going. They still do de-escalation. They do training with businesses downtown that are requesting training for their own staff in terms of how they address folks that might be coming into the store or a business in distress. So their scope of work really has evolved over the course of the 4 years. And with the announcement of the new emergency shelter being located just on the periphery of our downtown, moving from the Nest and really understanding what impacts the Nest had on the community there, I believe that this funding and expansion of the team will help support and alleviate some of the concerns the businesses around the new location are expecting to experience. Knowing that will be a permanent emergency shelter, now is the time to make the investments to make sure that that they have the best facility possible to address their needs while also minimizing impact to the community and maybe even addressing some of the impacts that are still being felt within the community with a lot of the consolidation of services kind of in the same area.
Thank you. Do any other members have questions? I don't see any, so I'll thank you for your presentation, and you may return to the gallery. We will now consider item EX 24-98, Community Wellbeing Federal Funding Opportunity. And I'm going to ask City Manager Nikki Anderson to introduce the report.
Thank you. Through the chair. In October 2024, administration was contacted by Housing, Infrastructure and Communities Canada about the Unsheltered Homelessness and Encampment Initiative. Through its National Housing Plan, the federal government is proposing to provide funding to the City of Regina through a cost-matching agreement delivering nearly $3.6 million over 2 years. As part of the agreement with Housing Infrastructure and Communities Canada, the city is required to submit a Community Encampment Response Plan, also known as CERP, which is the application form that basically outlines what we will spend the money on. While the city is incredibly grateful to have the funding opportunity, we do want to note that it is one time and it ends in 2026. Therefore, we focused on initiatives that would not require high levels of sustainable funding after 2026, but rather put forward initiatives that either focused on one-time capital improvements to spaces that support individuals that are houseless, or initiatives such as the Regina Street Team that require immediate expansion to support additional initiatives. Administration is recommending that City Council approve the initiatives that are listed within this report to enter into an agreement with Housing Infrastructure and Communities Canada to receive and disperse the funding as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Can I have someone move the report? Okay, that will be Councillor Fro. Do you have questions for administration? Please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you, Nikki, and through you to city administration for your work on this. I guess a two-part question. In 2019, the city, along with provincial partners and stakeholders, released the Everyone is Home report, and at that time, I think it said that in order to address the challenge we faced then, it was about $63 million, roughly $15 a person, and of course, last year, the previous council did some, material work on this. I guess my question, through the chair to you is, knowing that this is one-time money, but recognizing the acuity of some of the mental health and addictions that are out there, I think community stakeholders will rightly ask, what portion of this money represents incremental or new services given the magnitude of the challenges, recognizing, as you stated, that, this is one-time funding. So how much of this money is supporting pre-existing and pre-budgeted city expenses versus supporting incremental or sustained efforts to support our most vulnerable? Thank you. Through the chair.
Through the chair, I'll start, and then if anyone else from administration would like to add on or correct me, please let me know. So one of the caveats of this funding was its matching dollars. And so what the federal government did allow us to do was recognize funds already invested. So I do want to be clear that we focused on either projects or initiatives where we and the province or the province had already invested. So as Melissa said with the YWCA, it is to help with capital improvements once they have their permanent facility. We had already committed to the permanent shelter with RITSIS, so funds will go to that. I would say the street team is the one where we know we need to do a little bit of expansion, and there probably is future conversations about how is that going to be funded. But what we know right now, like Judith said, from the downtown bid, concerns around the new permanent shelter, making sure that we have the street team available there will be important for the stakeholders in that area. So I would say it's not as much about a massive expansion of any programs as frankly it's helping cover the costs of things we already needed to do.
Are you good? Okay. Do any other members have questions? Okay. Councillor Bizo, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, you mentioned incremental operational costs. What would those costs be for operations, like monthly operational costs or projected operational costs?
Do you know?
Through the chair, so specific to the permanent emergency shelter that the city is owning, I think we've done our estimations. That'd be about, I think, about $35,000 a month of kind of costs around what we pay for security, the utilities, et cetera, for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bizo. I don't see other questions, but I do have one as well. So when I look at the Regina Street Team funding, it looks like it's just, is that for over 2 years or just this coming year for the Regina Street Team is my first question. And then secondly, we know that we'll have to do some additional work to figure out a long-term funding source for the street team. So what are the next steps with that?
Through the chair, so there's $600,000 for year 1 and $600,000 for year 2 for the street team. And like I said earlier, ongoing funding is a future conversation. But what I would say is the funding, I believe it was last year, came in large part from CSIR, and that was one-time funding.
Yeah.
So we were already having conversations for this upcoming budget about how is it being funded. And so frankly, this helped put a solution right in front of us when we didn't have one.
Okay. I also see a question from Councillor Mancinelli. Please go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. That last reply just triggered a question. The original funding from CSER was $800,000. You denoted $600,000 in year 1 and $600,000 in year 2, but no original funding source. Is this not for an expansion? So we're going to have the original $800,000 per year and an additional $600,000 over and above for expansion of the services, correct?
There's provincial fund, yeah. Through the chair, I'll let Ms. Bam speak to it, but there's also provincial funding that's attached to it, so this is on top of the provincial
Perfect.
funding.
I just wanted to make sure it was expanding and I wasn't misunderstanding. Thank
Okay.
you.
Ms. Spam, go ahead. Oh,
Through the chair, I just want to clarify with the Regina Street Team, as we would have discussed with the previous council, there was actually a $300,000 funding gap for the Regina Street Team. CSIR was only providing $500,000 this coming year, so as part of the $600,000, that's one to fund the gap, and then the $300,000 would be the additional, just to clarify
Okay.
why we put that forward.
Thank you very much. Good to go.
thank you. Excuse me. I don't see other questions. So I will ask the mover, who I think was Councillor Flores. Was it Vizo? Does anyone remember who moved this report? Okay, Councillor Fro, then. Would you, wasn't just me, they didn't know either, if you would like to close off the debate. Okay, 1 sec, please. Please go ahead.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. And so we will call the question. And so you will see the vote show up on your tablet. I'll also ask for verbal votes from Mayor Wyszynski. Go ahead.
Yeah.
In favor?
In
Okay.
favor.
And Councillor Flores?
In favor.
Okay.
everybody else voted?
I'll turn your mic off for a sec.
Yes. Deputy Mayor, the motion passes 11-0 with all members present voting in favor.
Thank you, Clerk. We will now move on to a delegation related to EX 24-100, which is Growing Canada's Community Canopies. I would like to call upon delegation Rebecca Magnus. You will please introduce yourself for the record, the organization you are representing, if applicable, and where you live. You have 5 minutes to address Executive Committee, and after which you will have the opportunity to respond to any questions that members may have for you. And I don't have you in the script as well, so you can also introduce yourself. I'll turn on both of your mics. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Your Worship Mayor Baczynski, and councillors. My name is Rebecca Magnus. I am representing Regina Lakeview Community Association and live in Lakeview myself. Joining me today is Mary Vetter, also with the Regina Lakeview Community Association. She is our current treasurer. So on behalf of Regina Lakeview Community Association, we are here to present a summary of the brief you have received. We are requesting that City Council support our application to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies for funding towards the last phase, Phase 6, of the Lakeview Park Redevelopment Initiative. Since 2017, we have been working collaboratively with the city's Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services Department to redevelop Lakeview Park. This followed extensive consultation with the community via in-person meetings, questionnaires, and feedback solicited via our website and social media. We've completed the first 5 phases. These included installing trees, a new playground, Regina's first pump track, a new all-season multi-sport rink, lighting, crusher dust pathways, and a picnic area, all designed to be accessible to persons with limited mobility. LCA has raised over $400,000 through grants plus contributions through individuals and small businesses to pay for all of the above except for the rink, which the city paid for. We have raised a good part of the funding for Phase 6, which is to landscape the southwest part of the park by installing irrigation, topsoil, sod, and hydro seeding to plant trees, shrubs, and a pollinator garden. Now we are seeking approval from the City Council to seek and hopefully receive approximately $41,000 towards this effort from Growing Canada's Community Canopies. Since each municipality in Canada can ultimately receive a maximum of $10 million for tree planting and $1 million for related infrastructure from this fund, this would leave approximately $9,958,000 that the city could receive in future for other tree planting projects. As well, our funding proposal experience would give the city valuable experience in formulating future funding proposals to this fund. The results of the Lakeview Park redevelopment have been amazing. First, we replaced infrastructure with new, accessible, innovative, and very well-used recreational amenities. Second, our community has come together to work on this shared project. Third, a nature-themed park setting is being created that provides shade, habitat for birds and insects, and resting places for people to observe, learn about, and enjoy nature. And fourth, the naturalized environment and provides resilience to climate change. Thank you very much, and we are happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you. I do have, lots of questions. Okay, so we will start with Councillor Bisso. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you.
Or, sorry, go
Through the
ahead.
chair, how much money did you fundraise?
Through the chair, we have raised over $400,000 to date for the Lakeview Park.
It's fantastic. Good work.
Thank you. Did you have further questions?
No, that was it, just on the fundraising, $400,000, it's a
Okay, thank you.
big chunk of money.
Thank you, Councillor Bizo. Okay. Councillor Fro, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, Mary and Rebecca, thank you and congratulations. Admittedly, I'm biased. I live in Lakeview and you're both my neighbors. But this is a softball question. I wonder if you think it might be a good idea to challenge Mayor Baczynski and council to maybe a game of outdoor hockey against the students of Lakeview School and the community members sometime this winter so they can see firsthand all the great work that you've done. So thank you for that.
Through the chair, I think we just had a commitment to a New Year event.
Sounds good. Next question is Councillor Burton. Please go ahead.
Through the chair, just checking, is it a monoculture of trees that you're planting or a variety? What does it look like for kind of the implementation that you're putting in place?
Through the chair, we have worked closely with the city on developing a diverse set of trees and shrubs, both native and hardy trees and shrubs, and it's through the recommendation of the city that we have, correct me, Mary, how many species? There are, I believe, 4 different tree species and up to 10 different shrub species we're looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Excuse me, do you have a number of trees and shrubs in mind? Like, have you gotten to that detail in your design?
Through the chair, I'll let Mary answer this. I can't remember the exact number.
To you, Madam Chair, yes, we have about 39 trees and shrub species. Some of those will be duplicated, but plants. And as Rebecca said, these will be plants that are, species that are native to southern Saskatchewan, as well as a few horticultural varieties to enhance color and seasonal effect and things like that, but primarily native species that, that are adapted, evolved to this climate.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further questions, so I'll thank you for your presentation and ask you to return to the gallery. We will now consider item EX 24-100, Growing Canada's Community Canopies, Lakeview Community Association grant application. And I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Ted Schischler to introduce the report. Please go. Oh, is it? It's not going to be, okay, then that's what my script says. So I will instead ask Deputy City Manager Deb Bryden to introduce the report. Great. Please go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you through the chair. We are very happy to be partnering with Lakeview Community Association on the development of this park. It's been an ongoing project over the last few years. And the Federation of Canadian Municipalities does require third-party partner applications for this fund to be supported by a municipal council resolution confirming awareness of the impacts upon the award, specifically that it does lower our lifetime availability, or the municipality's lifetime availability of the $10 million in funding that is available to us. The intent of this report is to seek that resolution from council to support the Lakeview Community Association's application. And as we've been partnering with them, we certainly recommend that council do this. This project furthers our parks master plan, our energy and sustainability framework, with no financial impacts on the city. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Bryden. Do any members have questions for administration? Oh, okay. Can I get someone to move the report, please? You can either raise your hand or press. Okay, Councillor Turnbull, do you have questions for administration on this report? No, okay. Okay, Councillor Rasovich, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. So is it $10 million that's available to plant trees? Is that nationally through the country that we can apply for, or is that for the city?
Thank you for that question, Councillor. Through the chair, that funding is available for the city, like the city of Regina.
Okay. Is there, through the chair, is there a time period for us to use that?
I believe it's 10 years. Through the chair, it's 10 years.
10 years? Okay. Do we have any other ideas or applications that we've been thinking about doing?
We have, through the chair, we do have some conversations ongoing about how the city may make an application for some of our projects.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rasovich. I don't see further questions, but I do have one myself. So the delegation spoke to having native plant species. And so what I'm wondering is, I know that that the city's been working with Lakeview Community Association for this funding opportunity. Have, in terms of the naturalization that we are trying to achieve through our Parks Master Plan, is, will this contribute, this new, if we're successful, will this new opportunity help contribute to our goals for naturalization of park spaces?
Thank you for that question through the chair. So administration has really been strongly working with the community association about the development of this park, and we are advancing all the goals and initiatives in our Parks Master Plan as best we can, including some of that naturalization.
Great. Okay. So I don't see further questions. So the mover was Councillor Turnbull, and so if you wish to close, like if you have anything you wish to... No, I'm okay, so. And I will ask the clerk to start the vote then. And so I'll need a verbal vote from Mayor Baczynski. Okay.
In favor?
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Flores.
In favor.
Okay. Sorry.
Deputy Mayor, the motion passes 11-0.
Thank you, Clerk. Okay, we will now consider item EX 24-96, Water Network Expansion Project Debt Financing. This time, I'm going to ask Deputy City Manager Ted Schischler to introduce the report. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The Water Network Expansion Project was identified as a requirement in the City of Regina's Water Master Plan to provide a long-term plan for the city's water distribution network to accommodate growth. By addressing pressure and storage issues, this project will support the growth and development in all areas of the city. Without these upgrades, the current pressure concerns that residents experience in summers will continue and will increase and will impact our ability to grow as a city. This project began in 2023 and is expected to be completed in 2025. There are three components to this report today. The first one is about including an estimated 1.39% mill rate increase at the time of the writing of this report in the upcoming 25 budget to fund the principal and interest payments for debenture to support this work. Administration has already received direction from Council on July 17th, 2024 to arrange financing and prepare the necessary borrowing bylaw for the $100 million debenture required in 2024 for this work. That borrowing bylaw must identify a funding source for principal and interest, hence the mill rate. This report contains the requested information from Council at that time and maintains Administration's original recommendation to include that estimated mill rate increase in the 2025 budget to fund the principal and interest rate payments. The second component of this report provides details of that borrowing bylaw that will come to Council next Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Administration has been working with a financial institution who has gone to the market. This debenture has now been priced and the book for the sale of it has been booked with anticipated funding on December 18th, 2024. Therefore, to continue that process successfully, it's important Council be aware of this and that this report and the borrowing bylaw must be approved by December 11th to carry on that path. The third component of this report relates to updates required to the administration bylaw 2003-69. The investment policy for the City of Regina will be updated to ensure administration has the authority to establish a sinking fund for the debenture. It's basically a fund we put money in that pays off the principal when the debenture is due 30 years from now. The sinking fund is used to pay that principal at maturity. A change to the reserve provisions in the bylaw is also required to stipulate that investment income earned on the investments in the sinking fund remain in the sinking fund and aren't used for other purposes, so that it's we're able to fully repay that principal at maturity. With that, I have a number of colleagues here and myself who are happy to take any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schischler. Can I have someone move the report, please? Mayor Wyszynski, do you have questions for administration?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, kind of reiterate, but through the chair, so we're already seeing impacts from this infrastructure not being in place, correct?
Through the chair, I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Doney, to speak to that.
Mr. Doney?
Through the chair, yes. As we grow and even today, during the hot, dry summer, we see our pressure deficiencies across the city, primarily on the east side of the city.
Thank you, Mayor Wyszynski. Councillor Buzo, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, we're going to be going into debenture of about $100 million or $100 million. That's to replace funds that we already have in our capital reserve, correct?
Mr. Schischler?
Through the chair, not exactly. We did cash in some of the city's investments to cash flow and move work along this year. That's already done. Those are needing to be replaced. They're not necessarily capital reserves, but they could be from different sources. But
will that $100 million that's going to be reinvested, as you mentioned?
It will replenish the sources we've taken the money to fund so far, and then the remainder, which would be small, will be used to continue.
Okay. Do we have any idea of what the reinvestment interest rate will be when we put the $100 million back into?
We don't. We could look to what we're getting on different, but they're sort of in different components. We haven't calculated that, but there would be an investment return if it went straight back into investments. We've foregone that obviously this year, so we've taken it out. So it's a bit of catch up. I don't have the rate offhand. I don't know if anybody would have it offhand. We could get it for next week if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, if we can get that for next week, that'd be.
See what we can do to give a perception anyway, or perspective. Yeah. Sorry.
Just to get the understanding of where we've got $100 million in the in the accounts right now. We paid for the project. We're replenishing the $100 million through the debenture.
Correct.
With that money that we're going to be borrowing essentially for the debenture at 4.5% per year, and we're going to have to pay that term back at the end of the 30 years for $100 million. What are we going to gain for that interest rate in the meantime? So the question really comes into, if we're going to be matching our rate, roughly 6% is what we would have to get for those returns for that $100 million, then there'd have to be like no mill rate increase because of that.
Yeah, through the chair, reasonably confident wouldn't be a perfect offset. If we had found that, we might have looked at different financial arrangements. Plus, the funds that we have cashed in to use are spoken for other projects, so they won't just be put in necessarily back into investments and left there. So it's not sort of a single tranche, but yeah, again, we can get more detail on that for you, but I don't have it handy. But yeah, there would be some offset, but it highly unlikely to be even close to a perfect match.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bezo. Do any other members have questions? I have a few myself, so I'll go ahead and we'll see if others wish to ask afterwards. So on page 5, it notes that the city has used debt capital markets financing multiple times in the past. I don't have a recollection of us doing that recently. Can you give some examples of other times that we've used this kind of financing?
Through the chair, looking at my team, it has been a while. I'm not sure the last time we did a debenture. Does anybody have it handy? Ms. Crew, oh, sorry.
Ms. Audley?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. The last time that we issued a debenture was 2019. It was a $12 million debenture. So it would have been before the previous council was in office. Before that, there was some, with the stadium project, we had a debenture for that one, as well as we've had them for other capital projects over the years. But yeah, the last one was 2019.
Thank you. Okay, and as we'll be adding information about a sinking fund to our investment policy, it appears we haven't used this tool before. So is it true that this is a brand new tool for our municipality, and how did it come about to be recommended now? And will it open up new opportunities for investments for us for the future?
Through the chair, so I don't believe we set aside a formal sinking fund for debentures in the past. My team can correct me in a moment if that's incorrect, but the sinking fund is basic. So I'll back up one step. With a debenture, you don't have to make principal payments. So we can borrow this $100 million, we can pay the interest payments every 6 months, and it just sits there with a principal balance of $100 million. The nature of a debenture is we are not actually making payments back to the holders of the debt on principal until the end, all at once. You can refinance it or you can pay it all off. So it's got there's a cost benefit there, but there's some flexibility there over time. The sinking fund is one that we would hold specifically to pay off that principal in 30 years. So an amount goes in every year to make sure, plus an anticipated investment return to make sure we have $100 million to pay that in 30 years. So we invest it because we're holding it ourselves and hope to get a small return that helps us out with that. We'd be fairly conservative in investing that because we want it to be there for sure. I'm not sure if my initial answer to your third question, Chair, is we wouldn't invest it in anything other than probably, secure bond type investments just to get a nominal return. So I'm not sure if there are other investment opportunities you were thinking about, but really it's a savings account, if you will, for the city to pay off that principal in 30 years.
Okay, and finally, there in other options, I think it's funding option 16, talks about why, like the option of phasing in the mill rate increase. And also on page 8, it notes that aside from 1.39 for 2025, an additional 1.68% increase will be needed in the 2026 budget. So and the rationale not to phase it in was partially, I think, because of that. So if you can just expand on that, that would be helpful through the chair.
Through the chair, I'm going to ask Ms. Callender to speak to that.
Yes, you're correct. We recommending putting the 1.39 in the 2025 budget and not phasing it in because we know that next year we will also have a significant amount of debt that will increase the mill rate.
Great. Okay, that is all that I have. and I don't see, just one sec. I don't see others with questions. Oh, yes, I do. Councillor Rasovich, please go ahead.
The expansion, so this water expansion, is that for like when potentially for a population, say 300,000? Is that kind of the idea? So till we hit that point, kind of wondering.
It's Mr. Doney.
Mr. Doney, one sec, please go ahead.
Through the chair, yes, the water network expansion is to accommodate a population of approximately 300,000. The site is designed to be able to expand it beyond that to 500,000 population.
Okay. And with this expansion, would it benefit downtown as well, or is it more to expand outwards, or both?
Through the chair, it's to accommodate all growth in the city, so downtown and expansion, physical expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rasovich. Okay, seeing no further questions, I will see if Mayor Baczynski wishes to close debate.
Yep, I want to,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Do I have to move? Or is that next?
If you have
Already
other
moved.
questions or comments, you
Okay.
can go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will ask the clerk to start the vote. Right. Okay, and I will need a verbal vote from Mayor Baczynski and Councillor Flores.
Yeah, in favor.
In favor.
Councillor Bezo, it looks like we don't have your vote yet.
Deputy Mayor, the vote has passed 11-0 with all members voting in favor.
Thank you. We will now consider item EX 24-97, Advance Approval 2025 Budget and CIGP. Can I have Deputy City, just one moment. Councillor Turnbull?
I have to declare a conflict of interest due to a personal relationship related to one aspect of the capital advancement motion. So, no, I just get up and go.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to call administration to please introduce the report as described.
Thank you, Chair. Budget approval in non-election years is typically approved in the fall of the prior year. Because of the timing of the 2024 election and the budget approval timeline that will go into the spring of 2025, advanced budget approval for capital projects is required to accommodate procurement timelines for 2025 projects. Without this advance approval, several major projects would be delayed or canceled for 2025. Advance approval is also requested for the 2025 business as usual budget for Community Investment Grants Program, or CIGP. This amount represents the same level of CIGP funding as approved in the 2024 budget. Any increases to CIGP funding will be contemplated during Council's March of 25 budget deliberations. Through the CIGP, the city funds and partners with community nonprofit organizations to deliver programs and services to Regina residents that align with the city priorities, have a clear community impact, and respond to community needs. To date in 2024, the CIGP has provided over $5 million to 272 nonprofit organizations within our community. Through this funding, these organizations were able to provide thousands of hours of programming to our residents, allowing participants to enjoy a variety of events, initiatives, and programs. With that, there's a number of colleagues, depending on where the questions go, and we're all happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schizzler. Could I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Rasevich, please go ahead and ask any questions or comments you may have.
Oh, sorry.
No questions or comments?
No.
Okay. First up, we have Councillor Beazle. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Through the chair, what is the carryover for 2024 projects going into 25 that we haven't completed or spent yet? Dollar value or project details?
Okay. Through the chair, just give me 1 second. I'll grab it. I know it's in there. Look at Ms. Krulik. Do you have that number handy? Thank you. Ms. Krulik will have the number. Anticipated.
Please go ahead, Ms. Krulik.
Through the chair, I just need 1 minute to pull it up.
Okay. Do you have a, would you have a second question through the chair?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. On some of the advancements for the 25 budget for the capital projects, are we looking at some fairly long lead times or just contract negotiations that we need to expedite these processes?
Through the chair, I'll ask Mr. Doney. He's got most of those.
Through the chair. So generally what we find is that we get better pricing if we can get the contracts out as early as possible. So in the fall is ideal, January, February at the latest. And so we're in a competition with other industries. Of course, the province does lots of road work also. And so we have lots of tenders that have been out that are closed and pending council approval. And then if approved today and on Wednesday, more contracts will continue to go out to get confirmed pricing.
Thank you.
Mr. Schizzler, go ahead, please.
Through your chair, Ms. Krulik has the number for carry.
Through the chair, the capital carry forward is currently forecast at approximately $273 million at the point of the end of the third quarter. That includes both general capital and utility capital.
Do you have further questions, Councillor Beazle?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, the $273 million capital carry forward, would one of them be the water main expansion that we're presently working on? So that's balance of $140 million, I guess, on that project, somewhere in there. What are the other big ticket items that haven't been completed, or are they just long-term projects?
Who's taking that? Mr. Doney, go ahead, please.
I'll start and then I might ask the team to add a few more details. Some of the larger projects that come to mind, obviously the water network expansion, like mentioned already, but we've also got some large drainage projects that occur, and those are typically 2 to 3 year projects. They're in the order of $15 million each. So that's when we go in and do a complete rebuild and install new underground drainage pipes to reduce the risk of flooding. And so those, there's at least 2 or 3 in the capital carry forward that would be start to add up. Another one, of course, as mentioned, as whispered in my ear here, which is great, is Dudney Avenue. So that's a $30-ish million project. We're about half done. So we'd have $15 to $20 million there in capital carried forward also.
Thank you. Councillor Beazle, is there, or do you have further questions?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Burton, please go ahead.
One of the items listed is the Assiniboine northbound off-ramp onto Ring Road there. Talks about consulting services. Just wondering at a high level what those consulting services are. Is it traffic movements? Is it engineering? Through the chair, sorry.
Mr. Doney, please go ahead.
I'll ask Ms. Sigwin to give a bit more details, but generally it's to hire a consultant to do design work, and she can provide an overview of that.
Through the chair, Mr. Doney is correct. It's, we want to get the consulting work started so that we can proceed with construction in 2026. It will be the design of the off-ramp and any other changes to that bridge structure that are required.
Is it, through the chair, is there traffic movement studies and consulting that's already been completed, that has already been done there?
Yes, there was a, we called it an Arcola transportation study about 2 years ago, and this was one of the recommendations that came out of that study, and through that report they also did traffic evaluations.
I'm not going to hold things up at this point, but just to warn you, I will be challenging administration on in the future about the traffic movements there, and if people start using that as a bypass to make left turns onto Arcola at the overpass and bypass the backlog on University Park Drive as well. I'll leave that for a later day, and I will be challenging people on that, so thank
you. Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Fro, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, my understanding is that council approves the police budget annually, but that we don't delve into the specificities of that budget. And so as it relates to the roughly $1.6 million in advanced capital requests from the city, I guess my question, and forgive me because I'm a rookie, is it appropriate that we're approving these now, given that we're asked to approve the police budget annually and not delve into the individual sort of specific budget lines of that budget?
Who would like to take that?
So I'll give some context, and I don't discount for a second the merits of what's being requested. There are some very large budget items, roughly $600,000 for furniture. Really strong rationale there, so I'm not disputing it. The question is, in our orientation, one of the things as we walk through our relationship with the police is the annual nature of the review and approval of that budget as opposed to one-offs. Thank you.
Okay, I believe the clerk. Oh, okay, Mr. Schischler, just one sec.
Thank you. Through the chair, try a bit of an overview here. So yeah, this is unusual because of the election year. So ordinarily this would not occur in the normal course of operation. My understanding is there's already renovations underway in an existing plan, and this is a continuation of that plan for the police service. So there's something ongoing. So I'm looking to the team. Yeah. So I know some things. I don't know a lot about police. So you're a rookie. I'm almost a rookie, Councillor, through the chair. So just looking at my team to confirm that. So this would be more about continuation of existing work between sort of January 1st and when that budget is approved. And Ms. Bryden will correct me, but the Regina Police Service budget will come through our budget deliberations, and again, it's approved by the board there, but obviously overall there's an overall purview and consideration here at this table as well. So most of this, and I don't think all of it is attached to continuing, already ongoing and continuing renovation work over there at their building.
Thank you, Councillor Fro. Councillor Rasevich, please go ahead.
Through the chair, just on that same topic, because I know I've spoken with Councillor Fro about this, and just, so let's see, furniture, for example. Like, are we approving this? I'm asking, are we approving this today, or is this down the road?
Who would like to take that? Mr. Schischler?
Through the chair, generally, well, specifically speaking, these items we're asking for approval to proceed with, so unless something was to happen in the window between now and when budget is approved, these would be maybe not spent, but contracted, carried on. Yeah, it would not be the intent to wait until March. That's,
Hmm.
Do you want to? Okay. I think the clerk would like to add something.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, to your question, Councillor, again, Mr. Schizler has already commented that because of the budgeting cycle that we're in, this is done as a one-off this year to facilitate contracts being, getting going on things so that everything isn't held up until the budget is completed in March. So if these advance approvals for whether it's for furniture, acquisitions, other capital projects, if the approval is not given today, then we are essentially in a standstill until March. So that can affect pricing, that can affect job completions, et cetera. So again, and perhaps the solicitor has a legal comment to make in this regard.
Thank you. Through the chair, there's also a procurement process that has taken place already. So these procurements have already occurred, and some of those things have been committed to. So if these expenditures aren't approved at this time and they are held up until March, we also may have some issues with some of those processes that have already occurred and have been bidded on by different contractors within the city. So there's sort of a trickle-down effect.
Councillor Rasevich, did you have more? Go ahead, please.
Through the chair, just so would prior council would have been able to see any of this, or are we the first ones seeing this now? I'm just wondering because if they would have had questions in terms of, any of these line items, is this sort of just falling on our lap right now?
Ms. Anderson, please go ahead.
Through the chair, no, previous council would not have seen any of this, and like we've stated, this only ever happens on election years, because normally we would be approving the entire budget in December and approving the entire capital budget. So the only things that were to be brought forward on this specific report were things that basically, because we needed to get the procurement, the RFP out, or like city solicitor said, things already in progress, it really was to highlight those things. So no, previous council would not have seen these.
I guess I just think that's a lot of furniture. Anyways.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rasevich. Next, I have Mayor Bashinsky. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, just wondering, outside of kind of existing committed contracts and that, what would be the flexibility, if we had to kind of shuffle money between now and March timeframe, being this is kind of a preliminary budget approval to get us going with those things? Is there still opportunity if we needed to, tweak some things outside of kind of some legal implications going into March?
Who should I send that to?
through the chair, so are you asking, Mayor, so theoretically, if this was approved and then in January we had to tweak, or can we adjust between now and budget? Is that the question? I believe council, we could at council. I mean, if we have something already contracted and things, we would take this direction and act on it. If the direction changed or if administration identified changes, we'd bring them back.
Ms. Anderson, you'd like to add something?
Yeah, and through the chair, I might ask Mr. Nicol as well. Like, my recommendation might be that if there's something specific in there that you don't like or you don't feel comfortable with, that you pull that particular one or two out and approve the rest versus letting the entire, all of it fail. Unless for whatever reason you don't think any of them should advance.
Mr. Clerk?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. City Manager is correct. The list is in front of you today. There's any and all components you can remove from that. You can only, you can approve less if you wish. What you have to then keep in mind is the comments of both Mr. Schizler and Ms. Williams that we may be running into RFP or contractual implications if we pull back on something that's already been pre-approved and well on its way. But generally speaking, council can go through the appendix today and say, we are not giving advance approval for any one of those items, and I would just advise you to ensure you speak to admin to fully understand the implications that pulling any of those out at this time might create.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And also, I guess to note that we still have council before this is finalized, so if folks had questions that they wished they needed to dig into any of these items prior to council, there's still the opportunity to do so before we finalize this decision. Mayor Bishinsky, did you have further questions?
Yeah, I had one more question. I guess, yeah, just a validation. My understanding is there's a lot of conversation about the police component. My understanding is there's quite a bit of work still to be done on the police station. Like it's not complete essentially. So just for clarity, I guess for some of the questions that have come up, I'm assuming, but it would be good to confirm that that's probably a good chunk of the furnishing in that, for those spaces.
Mr. Schischler?
Through the chair, that's correct. I don't know exactly percentages or whatever, but there's quite a bit of work left to do there, yes. And the expenses arise from that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Bishinsky. I don't see other questions. I'm going to ask one. Oh, I do see. Do you want to go first, Councillor Mancinelli? Go ahead.
I just wanted to give a bit of clarity because it was asked about, and I remember from last budget, the furnishings for the police station. With the new Regina Police Services head office, they had multiple leases throughout the city, different lease spaces and split operations. With the centering of the services in one location, that's kind of spurred the need for some of these furnishings and these upgrades. They had actually wished to do this over the course of a year to a year and a half to save money on some of the leases they had spread out throughout the city. But at last budget, we weren't able to facilitate the request to enable that to happen. So I think that's why this has been prolonged. This is why it's on this budget now, and they're completing that process of the new headquarters. And if administration needs to correct me, please do. That's just what I remember from the last budget time, and bring it forward because you guys had questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mancinelli. I do have a question, which is perhaps like maybe you can just give some general information about how these particular items came forward. Like, why are these items in the pre-budget approval? Is it because this is work that you deem to be either essential for whatever reason, and some of them have already been received direction from council, not all, but if you can just give the rationale that led to all of these items coming forward to us as part of the pre-budget approval. Mr. Schischler?
Yeah, through the chair. I'll start and see if my colleagues want to add in. So timing is obviously a large driver. Ordinarily, we would be done or almost done the budget approval at this point in the year, so that would have been approved, things would have flowed. Many of these that you see on the list are either, there's something that's ongoing already, so it's to carry it on, or a new item that was approved through somewhere along the way to carry on with. Without a budget, we just don't have, administration does not have approval to even contract or RFP, nonetheless spend the money to do these things. So process was carried out to identify those things that we really need in advance of anticipated approval of the budget in March of 2025. I wasn't here last time, but I understand this happens in election year when budget cycle is impacted, and it's to keep things going. There, what else was I was going to add one more comment. I think the important thing is, as was mentioned, is to really keep these things going. If there's a procurement angle to any of these, and many of them do have, those processes have either been followed already, and they're fairly rigorous, so that selection, pricing, the right vendor, all that stuff has already been determined or will be determined. So it's not shortcutting any of the planning, the procurement, the budgeting type of work. It's getting that approval so that we can carry on these items.
Ms. Anderson, you have something to add?
Yes, through the chair. And I think I would just say in the report, the appendix serve as a really good reference. As administration, frankly, knowing that it's a new council, and even for me as city manager, for every one of them in the appendix, we put the rationale. And so I think really look at that, and if you have additional questions or need more specificity on those, as you mentioned, Councillor Zakidniak, this comes back to council next week, and we'd be more than happy to provide any additional information if what's in the appendix isn't sufficient or needs further explanation.
Thank you. I think I have one more question, which is, I don't know if you'll know this offhand, but would there be anything in this list that is brand new that has never been discussed in any way by council? Like this completely brand new in this list?
Through the chair, the capital budget is approved by council, and so basically these are initiatives to move those projects forward, projects that have been approved.
Right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. And actually, you'll close right away because you moved the report. So if there aren't further questions, oh yes, there are. So if you don't mind, or do you want to make your comment now? Because you will get to close. Okay. Then I will call on Councillor Bezo.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, we've previously identified, excuse me, about $200 million of capital carry forward, and that's excluding the major water network, some drainage issues. Now we're requesting another $92 million to advance some projects. My concern is there enough resources and allocation of resources to actually get the work done? If we're carrying over $200 million, roughly 273 was the number, but it really works out to about $200 million. Do we have enough resources to actually get the work done of what you're asking for and the commit is? So I would request for next week more of a detailed list of that carry forward, and to see if we have enough of the resources in place to actually get the work done versus just asking for money.
Mr. Schischler?
Through the chair, so resources, you mean?
The project managers, the team to actually execute on the work. So some of this work that that's been discussed, and I'm going to say particular with the policing numbers, when you look at the appendix, it's procurement of vehicles, it's procurement of some, laptops for the vehicles, it's that kind of stuff. Understanding you're going to go for bulk pricing, you're going to get everything, fair enough. Those are procurement specific activities. That's essentially issuing the PO and getting the stuff. But then we got big projects on the go, like $14.8 million, road renewal of $12 million. We're not getting work done now to the tune of $200 million, but we're asking for more money for next year to carry on with more work that we're not getting done. So the question really comes, we'd like to see, is it a multi-year project? Bring us a spreadsheet of, here's your spend on this project per year. So 2025, if we're going to say 11th Avenue, here's your spend on 2025, but we're going to carry that over for the next 2 to 3 years to see what this is. Because right now we're just seeing a very small snapshot of what the ask is, but we don't know what the spend is and what's committed right now.
Just a couple comments. Some of it would be resource dependent through the chair, and some of it is, approved, gives us the ability to RFP and contract. So the work wouldn't be done, but we could have the arrangements so that it stays on time. And I see my colleague, Mr. Doney, wants to comment, have better expertise on this.
Mr. Doney, please go ahead.
Through the chair, great question, and we can provide some details. And in previous council would have seen the capital carry forward kind of in the fall or the summer of each year, and so once we get into a cycle, this council will see that. But as an example, if we look at 11th Avenue of a large amount of money, that will be spent over 2 years, and so of course we've got a team built around that to deliver it. We're currently in negotiations with the contractor to enter into that contract, and so things are well resourced. Some other things that you'll see on utility particularly is that we can only do it during particular seasons, and it has to be collaborated with Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant, and so they're going through some major upgrades there. And so, for example, we can only do inspections of some large water mains during, not when it's summertime, during the dry weather time. And so that's an example where we're carrying things forward a little bit more than what we'd like to, not necessarily an internal resource perspective, but a system restraint. So we can either provide that information, the capital carry forward, and then we can have more of a detailed conversation about it if needed at council.
It looks like Mr. Schischler would like to add something. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, just one more comment. There is a Q3 capital and capital carry forward update and forecast memo that council will receive before next Wednesday. It is done, so we'll just check it. I was just checking to see if exact timing.
Thank you.
I know you don't have it yet, but today or tomorrow you'll get that as well. And next week as well, there's the Q2 and Q3 results and forecast, which also could help inform this discussion. But yeah, we can be prepared for you for all that next week.
Thank you.
For all of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bizo. I don't see further questions. I will pass it to Councillor Rasevich to close.
Sure. I just want to follow up on Councillor Mancinelli's comments about, I guess we didn't know that we were leasing three different spaces, and now I guess, and I didn't know that it was going to, I guess, just everything's going to be centralized, but even still, in my mind, I sort of think, hey, those leased places obviously had furniture, and I'm just saying, had all different types of things, and so, you know, you wonder, can those desks or whatever components cannot be sometimes salvaged, used, you know, I wonder if it's things like that, you know, I mean, hey, I throw nickels around like manhole covers. So sometimes, you know, I just think, hey, I'm thinking about the people of Regina. So, you know, those just a comment that, you know, you wonder if these things sometimes it's, you know, hey, maybe it's easier just to buy brand new, but sometimes, you know, sometimes used isn't bad either. So just a comment. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Rasevich. And I don't see anyone else wishing to speak, so, and the debate is closed. So I'll ask the clerk to call the vote. And if I can get a verbal vote from Mayor Wyszynski
In favor.
and Councillor Flores.
In favor.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, the vote has passed in a vote of 10-0, with all members present voting in favor. And for the record, Council Turnbull is away from the vote as she declared a previous conflict of interest.
Okay. We now have a mandatory break, and we will be returning at 10:55. If I can get people to take their seats, we'll call the meeting back to order. Okay, we will now consider item EX 24-99 Global Transportation Hub Property Assessment and Taxation Services Agreement. Can I have Deputy City Manager Ted Schlichler please introduce the report? Your name's difficult for me. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Another report for me to introduce, so thank you for your patience this morning. I'll try it again. As long as the word procurement isn't in here, I should be fine, Chair. The Global Transportation Hub Authority Act, the Act, requires the City of Regina to provide assessment and taxation services for all property located in the Global Transportation Hub, or GTH, and remit the property taxes to the GTH Authority. The Act provides that the GTHA and the city may enter into agreement which sets out how the property taxes and other assessment, fees, and other amounts charged by the city are to be divided between the city and the GTHA. In 2015, the city negotiated a 5-year agreement with the GTHA providing taxation and assessment services at the cost of 3% of the taxes collected and $100 per hour for additional services. In 2019, the agreement was extended for a further 5 years and is now expiring at the end of 2024. Administration has been in discussions with the GTHA, and both parties are in agreement to renew the agreement with minor adjustments. Many of the changes are either minor housekeeping items or formalizing processes that have been put into practice since the initial agreement was put into place. Appendix A of the report provides a high-level overview of the updates to be made to the agreement. We are requesting the authorization for the Deputy City Manager of Financial Strategy and Sustainability to enter into a new agreement. Ms. Mills, who you met the other day, and I are here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlichler. So do any members have questions on this? Well, actually, I need someone to move the report as well. Okay, Councillor Mancinelli, if you have questions, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Move the report with the recommendation, and how were negotiations?
Through the chair, negotiations are fairly simple. We have a good relationship with the GTH. Most of the amendments that we've made here are things that we're already doing in practice. We're just looking to formalize them in the agreement.
Okay. Everything looks well done to me. You guys know how to do your job. I usually gravitate to things we can recognize. $150 per hour to align for administration's hourly rate they can charge at. Just thinking of some different service rates I've seen in the private side of things. Looking at the professional weight of the people who work at the city and the housing they have for doing their work. That sounds like a pretty economical fee to be charged out for professional services. How did you guys arrive at $150 an hour?
Through the chair, so this amendment is just aligning this agreement with what's already in the Regina administration bylaw.
Okay.
And so last time that bylaw was amended, it was amended from $100 to $150 an hour.
Okay.
And that is reflective of, the wage and overhead of the folks that are doing the work.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mancinelli. Excuse me, I don't see other members with questions. So, Councillor Mancinelli, do you have anything further? Okay, we'll call the vote. And if I can get a verbal vote from Mayor Bashinsky
In favor?
and Councillor Flores. In favor.
Deputy Mayor, the motion passes 11-0 with all members voting in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will now consider item EX 24-101, 2025 Council and Committee Meeting Calendar. Can I have the City Clerk, Jim Nickel, introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is the most special time of the year that we look at your calendar for the upcoming year ahead. So the 2025 Council and Committee Meeting Calendar that is before you today, which is outlined in Appendix A, has been prepared on the basis of status quo from 2024. That is based on a couple of things. One is that those changes, or the calendar schedule, kind of reflects the last couple of years of the previous council. It has been in place for administration, for the public, for the media to understand our reporting and time requirements. But I have to stress that this is your calendar. So I'll just quickly walk you through the appendix, which shows, as it stands now, we will have a break for the Christmas season. We're going to continue orientation the week of the 13th of January. And then what we start is we have monthly meetings of the Regina Planning Commission, which are typically at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. We then have every second Wednesday executive committee meets, and on the alternate every second Wednesday we have council meetings. Those are currently scheduled on Wednesdays. Executive committee, as you know, meets at is meeting at 9 o'clock, and it goes until 5 o'clock unless extended otherwise. Council is currently scheduled to meet on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock and continue until 9 p.m. as necessary, unless there's a motion to extend it. We also have worked in breaks to reflect the family week break in February. We've set aside the week of March 17th for budget deliberations. We have provided a break in April to attend the annual SUMA conference, and then we have the Easter break thereafter. And in May, we have the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And then the rest of the year, we have breaks in the summer, and things continue on in that way. There are other committees of council that will have to be penciled into this, but those will be determined later. Police Commission typically meets on the last Tuesday of every month at 9 o'clock. And we did provide you with some information in that regard. As well, we will be looking at scheduling the Audit and Finance Committee. I've had some preliminary discussions with both the city manager and our auditor, Mr. Viswanathan, and we'll be looking to come back perhaps with some tightened up terms of reference in that regard, which will help you determine who might want to sit on that committee. So what we are looking for today is either your concurrence with the schedule as it stands, which again is executive committees meetings on Wednesdays at 9, council at 1, RPC at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays once a month, and with approval of the breaks as needed. Again, any discussion or any decisions that you make in this regard are yours and yours alone, and we will take the direction. I just ask that just give us an opportunity to fully explain the implications to timelines, whether that's administration's reports being submitted or the public's registration to speak with you at either committee. So with that, I will answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Can I have someone move this report?
Okay. Councilor Flores.
No, I have indicated. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is that you, Councillor Burton?
Oh, I'm not to move, I was going to speak. Flores, I think, Victoria was going to.
Okay, one sec. Councillor Flores, go ahead. Would you like to speak? No. Okay, you just wanted to move it, okay. And thank you. We'll go then with Councillor Burton.
Through the chair, how long has this schedule been in place with the 9 a.m. exec and 1 o'clock council, and what was in the past, or what was some other alternatives?
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor, The 9 o'clock executive committee changed about 3 or 4 years ago, as well as council moving to 1 o'clock. Previously, in previous years, council always met on Monday evenings at 5:30, and that sometimes was once a month, sometimes it was every 3 weeks. Again, it was depending on the particular council's desires at that time. A few years ago, as I said, it was changed that executive committee, which had previously met on Wednesdays beginning at 11:30, moved to 9 o'clock. Then there was a discussion and a change for council to move from 5:30 on Monday evenings to 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. The feeling at that time was that that better accommodated some members who had other employment commitments, and it also put things on one particular day. In previous years, there was a multitude of about 5 or 6 council committees. Those have been narrowed down to, it was narrowed down to Planning Commission and Executive Committee. Then 2 years ago, they added the Audit and Finance Committee. So the times change. There was a concern when council moved to 1 o'clock on Wednesdays that it would curtail or limit the number of delegations who would feel that they had the opportunity to come and speak at council. That never materialized. We never really saw a diminished number of delegations, but there are continue to be citizens, particularly there may be members who feel that meetings during the day are not conducive to delegations coming. Some others would argue that having delegations come in the evening isn't conducive because of their family commitments. There was a request to have executive committee stay at 9 and council to move at 9 in the morning. But a decision was made by the previous council not to do that because it was largely to accommodate a member who couldn't regularly meet at 9 o'clock in the morning. So again, it is open to the 11 of you to determine what meets your needs the best. I will respectfully say that the mayor's in the position that we can work around his schedule because he's here full time. So it's really the 10 councillors who have to determine what meets your needs best.
So, through the chair, what would be the impact of moving executive to 1 o'clock on the opposite Wednesday to council?
From an administration point of view, it doesn't make all that much difference. It would just mean that we would start at 1 instead of 9 in the morning. So you may have delegations, you know, that find that easier to come mid-afternoon than early in the morning. I just can't say for sure what the impact is on the public or delegations. So it's really up to members to say, does 1 o'clock work better for you? And if that's what the majority determines, then we would just need to make a change to the procedure bylaw that would put that in place.
And I'm still allowed to keep going? Yeah, you betcha. So through the chair, what would be the average length, some outliers, some of the average lengths of both executive committee and of council over the past few years, and perhaps with a higher level of collaboration and cooperativeness, that maybe things might move faster, that what might you expect, or some...
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Well, the whole premise of a committee system is that the heavy lifting, the long discussions should be happening at the committee level, so that when you come to the council meeting, things go relatively smoothly, except for those items that didn't go to a committee for whatever reason. Again, it's hard for me to necessarily pinpoint anything. We've had some executive meetings that went from 9 in the morning till 7:30 at night. We've had council meetings that have started at 1 in the afternoon. I think one we had in September or August went till almost 11:15 in the evening. So again, as I've said many times, a lot of it is dependent on the discipline of council to say, no, we've heard that before, we don't need to rehash that. But again, that is your prerogative to talk these things out. So it's also dependent on the interest of the community. So if you have 30 delegations coming, and each of delegation has 5 minutes to address you, and then there are questions, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for us to provide any sense of a time frame to say, well, we'll be done at 4 o'clock and we'll move on to this. And that is something that delegations have complained about before. as well as members have said, well, you know, you kept 30 people waiting in the gallery. There's nothing we can do about that when there's 30 people registered. So I can control some of it, but a lot of it is in the control of yourselves in terms of how often do you want to meet, what time do you want to meet. But we're here to make it work.
Through the chair, I think as we look around the table here, and we've got a wide variety of backgrounds here, whether people are retired, whether they're business entrepreneurs, whether this is their main job, whether you are working for another organization. I think that's the value that we all bring, because people coming from one background, segment of society, environment, will not get the diversity of conversations and discussions that we need there with that. And myself, with a full-time commitment for my job and stuff like that, a 1 o'clock start for executive committee would be of great benefit for me to balance my career, to balance also the needs of the community and stuff. If we have people that some people may be able to speak in the afternoon or to executive committee, or if we want to go into the evenings, that somebody could come at 5 at the end of the workday, and there's benefits to people appearing perhaps at the end of executive committee, because we could schedule things appropriately when people identify, you know, if we were able to do stuff on the city website to say I'm available during the day or after 5 or various things like that. Those are things that could be added to the website when somebody submits that they want to appear in front of council. So it gives some opportunity, some flexibility that when you're here at exec committee, you got to take time off from whatever you're doing. So anyway, I don't know if I need to move motion or if I'll open the floor for other people, I think, to chat. I think that's how I'll do that for now. Thank you.
Excuse me, I've been asked, it's been suggested that the city solicitor perhaps might want to comment on the implications of moving the time to 1 o'clock for executive. Sorry, just one sec. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I was just following up to see whether or not there's any items that would have had public notice already going out on any of them, or whether there's any bylaws there or anything like that that we've provided notice on to the public already, because that would potentially cause an issue if we move the time from 9 for that meeting to 1. Going forward after that, if that was the decision of council, it wouldn't be an issue, of course, but we may end up having to keep that January meeting as is, just because of notice that may have already gone out to the public, so that we're not putting the public in any sort of disadvantage. So yeah, I think I'll just have to follow up with that, and I can certainly do that just to make sure that I give you accurate information. But I would say at this point, the safest option would be to keep that January meeting as is, and then if the decision is made to move it to a different time, to do it after that meeting.
So Deputy Mayor, I'll just add to that. Any changes that you would make would not come into effect until you voted on them at the council meeting at the end of January, because we have to change the procedure bylaw, and the procedure bylaw by law requires public notice. So anything you move today, which can be carried forward to council next week, would simply say that the solicitor would have to come back in January. So the effect of any changes to your calendar timing will not take place until February.
That's good. Yes, sorry, just to follow up, Peter, the clerk is absolutely correct. We would have to give public notice to change the actual bylaw that would change the time. So that's right as well. We would have to wait until after that meeting.
Okay, and you're good for now, or do you? Okay. And so next I see Councillor Turnbull. Go ahead, please.
Okay, do I have to press any button? Okay, to the chair, I was questioning if we were to make changes to our committee meetings, does it have to be at this meeting, or can, after we've had a few meetings, can we make changes 2 months, 3 months from now to see how things go with the new council and the timeline?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The short answer, Councillor, is yes. You can change the meeting times anytime throughout the year. We just have to do the required public notice, which typically is at least a week minimum. We come to executive committee, then it goes to council. So any changes that you might make, there's going to be about a 2 or 3 week delay before they take effect. But it is open to you to reflect on this within any time frame during 2025 and make the changes whenever you want.
So to the chair, I'd also like to speak about that the suggestion that we move the other one also to 1 o'clock. I would be opposed to that. I do like the meetings at 2 separate times because it creates different accessibility windows for different groups of people. Whereas if you just had it always at that one, you are deterring another ease of access. For example, children's bedtimes going on and the meetings that go really longer. When there are 2 different times, it does increase the window of accessibility to larger groups of people. I would also say that we need to do something about closed captioning for ease of access. And there's some other suggestions I would like to put forward in the future. As well as I believe that we need to increase our times for delegates' notice. They currently do not even have 1 full business day in terms of seeing the it go out on Friday at noon, and they have to respond by Monday at noon, and it's very, they don't even have a full business day. So I do believe there are a lot of tweaks we have to do to make this more ease of access to the community, but I also think if we take the time to reflect to see how this council goes and our speed and our pace, we'll be in a better space to do that. So I would recommend that we revisit this in a month or so.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. I don't see other members wishing to speak. I will add that it was regularly the case in the last term that our executive meetings lasted from 9 to 5. And so I agree that I think it would be good for us to see how long this council how long we need for executive meetings before we change the time. I think that might be a good idea to see. It's a new group of people. How long will our executive meetings take? And I think that I as well might have some interest in making some changes to this schedule, but I think it's probably wise for us to wait and see how things go with this new group. That's just my opinion, before making changes. I don't know if did you wish to speak again, Councillor Burton? Okay, 1 sec, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, that's perfectly reasonable. I think that this is a discussion that we need to have. There's various, as I described, we all have various situations and backgrounds that we need to deal with. And as I said, I'm hoping for a new level of cooperation and collaboration and, you know, being able to move things quicker as a group here with that. And I would be, you know, I'm putting out there to make people aware that people have commitments, and as the member or councillor from Ward 5 says, she's had other commitments as well that needs to deal with. So we all have our own situation, and I'd be agreeable to that. And you know, just people need to be aware that I have my situation and you guys have yours, and we need to work it out. And I'm sure we'll be able to do that. And so I've put it out there, and I think we're ready to go, and we'll work our way through it and see how we do. And I'm looking forward to it, actually, with everybody.
One possibility is that we could approve the calendar only up until, I guess, the end of March. Is that what you? And then have the opportunity to revisit it. Like, there's 2 possibilities. We just approve the entire 2025 and then have the ability to revisit it if we wish. Or if we approve it till the end of March, that would trigger the clerk's coming back with a report, and it would trigger an automatic discussion in the future. So I don't know if you have a preference, but I just thought I'd mention those options.
Yes, that sounds very much reasonable. We get it on the schedule, and then we have a look at it.
So, sorry, do you want to move to?
I could, do you want me to move we approve to the end of March? That would be my motion?
Sure, yes, just 1 sec though.
Is that a friendly amendment, or?
Okay, the clerk will clarify.
So thank you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly that's something we can do. What I need members to understand is that any changes you're making to that are really going to be with respect to the timing of executive and council. Once we get further, when the police commission comes, for example, at 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, just reminding you respectfully, that's not your decision to make, even though you sit on, some of you may sit on it. So I don't want you to think that this is opening up everything, but certainly we can come back at the end of March and say, this is how it worked. We can get your feedback, And if we get the sense that you're looking to make a change, then we will bring that forward. So all we need is someone to make a motion to essentially have Councillor Flores, you may want to ask her, she was the mover, if she withdraws the concurrence and just simply moves that the calendar for 2025 be approved up until March 31, with the clerk to come back with a report for any future consideration of changes. And if you take that as a given, we'll just reflect that in the minutes.
Councillor Flores, you're okay with that?
Yes, I'm okay with that
Okay.
change.
So then no amendments needed because that's now part of the main motion. Okay, so I don't see anyone else wishing to speak. And was it Councillor Burton who moved this? Councillor Flores. Do you wish to close debate? Okay. Okay, so we will, so just to clarify, the main motion now is that this meeting calendar is approved to the end of March, and the clerks will return for us to have a further discussion prior to then regarding the remainder of 2025. So we'll call the vote on that. And we'll do a verbal vote again by Mayor Bashinsky.
In favor.
And Councillor Flores.
In favor.
Great, thank you.
Deputy Mayor, the motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Can I have someone, you can just raise your hand, move a motion for private session? Councillor Mancinelli. I will call the question. Any opposed? Carried. So we will have a 10-minute recess, and then we will resume. So that puts us at 11, we'll say 11:35.